Today I want to talk about 2-5-1. So this is what is called a cadence, and a cadence is basically a resolution of a phrase, the ending of a phrase, and the chord progression just at the very tail end of a phrase. So 5-1 is a really popular cadence, right? So ending on 1 is your home base. It's like it has a feeling of like you've arrived home, right? When you get back to 1. So to lead up to the 1, 5 is a great chord that's used a lot of times before the 1. And there's a couple reasons for this. You have your leading tone, which is actually the 7th tone of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a B in this case. So if you have the leading tone, it's a half step away from the C. It wants to lead back to the C to resolve. You don't want to leave it just hanging there usually, unless it gives you a feeling of like something is unresolved, and then when you get back to the 1, like you arrive. So the 5 chord is a G, G, B, D. Notice it has in the 3rd position the leading tone. So the 5 leads back to 1 in a way. So that's a good reason why that's a very popular cadence, to go from 5 to 1. So add one more step to it, one more element. Add the 2 to the 5 to the 1. So a couple things I want you to notice here. When I do the 2, it's a D minor chord. So in a major key, the 2 chord, as it naturally occurs, is going to be a minor. Now, a major chord, the difference between a major chord and a minor chord is the 3rd, the middle note, the 3rd of the chord. In a minor chord, it's a minor 3rd away from the root note, and in a major chord, it's a major 3rd away from the root note, which is just a half step difference between a minor and a major. Okay? Remember, to build a major chord, you take the root note, you go up 4 half steps to the 3rd, and then from there go up 3 half steps to the 5th. But to do a minor chord, you just go up 3 half steps for the 3rd, and then from there go up 4 half steps to the 5th. Okay? So that's how to build a minor chord, and the difference between a major and a minor. So the 2 is naturally going to be a minor chord, and then the 5 is a major chord, and then the 1. So I'm going to voice these a little different so I'm not jumping around kind of awkwardly. I'm going to do the 2nd inversion on the 5 chord, and then do the 1st inversion on the 1 chord. And then you notice the top note, in this case, you have A, B, C. So there's this motion, stepping up motion, from one note to the next note, which is the leading tone, which naturally wants to step up a half step back to the 1. So voicing, you can see why voicing is important, because you don't get that same kind of stepping up feel if you play each of those chords in root position. You get more of a, which that's not as clean, a resolution. So there's your basic 2-5-1 cadence. Now you can do some things to spice this up a little bit. First of all, take the 5. Now we know the leading tone here wants to lead a half step up to C. You can add another half step motion that wants to push it to resolution if you do a 7, a 5-7 chord, or dominant 7 as we'll call it. So you have your G chord 1, 3, 5. If you add a 7 to it, it's an F natural. So take that F natural, bump it down an octave. So you have the 7 here. Now you got 4 notes to deal with now. 1, 3, 5, and 7, right? So it's getting a little busy. You can kind of abbreviate that if you want to make it a little easier for yourself, and it's not going to sacrifice much sound if you take out the 5th, the D in this case. The 1, the 3, and the 7 are going to be the most important sounding notes in that chord. So keep those. And you notice like it still has a nice full sound. You could play the 5 too, if you want. But this is really all you need, the 1, the 3, and the 7 in this case. Then add a bass note to it, and it's a full effect. So that 7, what it's doing here, if you notice the leading tone here, along with the 7 of the chord, the F, they resolve oppositely in opposite directions. The leading tone resolves a half step up, the 7 resolves a half step down to an E, which is the 3rd of your 1 chord. So that symmetry is a beautiful thing. That's why the 7 chord sounds so good in the 5 position, leading back to the 1. Got those little things inside there that are pushing for a resolution. So now we've modified. We got the 2, the 5, 7, the 1. Classic. It's used all over the place. Let's go a step further and let's spice up the 2. Now, it's a minor chord naturally, but we could like bend things around, do a little mini modulation here, and create a major chord instead. So notice what happens when we do that. We got an F sharp, and listen to where it goes. See here, listen for this. Listen for that motion as I play it. It's stepping down a half step each time, and then it lands here at the final resolution. So combine that with this step up motion of the ABC on the top that we have, that I talked about earlier. Has a cool sound, right? All right. And you could add a bass note to those, of course. And then you can even add, we've made this one major, which is cool. Add a 7 to it, if you want. Spice it up a little bit more. All right, so there's some variations of the 2-5-1 that you'll see all over the place. Now, just as an example, I talked about the 1 and the 4 and the 5 last time. So now you can add the 2 to your arsenal. And now we're getting our progressions a little bit more sophisticated. One more variation of the 2-5-1 I want to show you. This is from a song I've been learning recently. So the 2, it adds this octave up here. We got the D minor, add a D up on top, just double the octave, that's acceptable. And then move it down a half step. That's a really tense chord right there. But it works because it's actually going somewhere. So listen to the progression of this. So the motion of it starts on D, goes down a half step, creates a lot of tension, but keeps on going down a half step, creates a different kind of tension, and then finally resolves. So it's like half step motion there if you take just that part of it out. So if you notice on the 5, so here's the 2, and then you get to the 5, I don't just go to a straight 5, I go, I suspend the 4th, a sus4, and then it resolves down to the 3rd, which is the leading tone, which wants to resolve further back to here. So some extra elements of tension and resolution added there. And it's kind of cool because one thing, adding tension then resolving, it's adding a different kind of tension and it's resolving, but it's still not all the way there. It still wants to go there before you can rest. And then just let's do one more step with it. So we got, when we go to the 1, we're not going to go straight there. So what I did there, I have what would be my 1 chord here, although on top I've added a 7, so it's a C major 7, and I've added a 9. So a 9 chord, basically, it's like adding a 2, the second tone of the scale, but just up an octave. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is my octave, and then what would be my 9 is the same thing as a 2 down here. So, but people call it a 9 chord. So just to get fancy with your 2, 5, 1. That's from a song I'm learning called Deed I Do, a 1926 song. I think it's by Fred Rose. Maybe there's 2 authors of it, I don't remember, but it's just a favorite of mine that I'll be recording soon. Well, that's it for 251. Go play with it, have fun, and thank you for watching.